Oh man, it's been a while since I sat in this thing. Well, it's also been a while since I posted a video here on YouTube. A lot has changed. I have driven the car a fair bit. It has actually been inspected. It doesn't have a plate yet. I'm waiting on responses from PennDOT, but we're getting there. It'll be up and driving soon, and then there will be a lot more content coming out because it would be much easier for me to get to events and races and car shows and all those crazy things and get lots and lots of content. So I'm hoping to jump back on it. I would like to do at least a video a month. We'll see how it goes. Autocross season is starting, so there might be a couple more race videos coming out, which I have not posted anything about so far, so we'll talk about that some in the video. First autocross event was back in June when I drove the car for the first time with any kind of throttle, and it really did not go very well at all. The car is very much a handful to drive. I did not do my due diligence and bring all the camera gear I needed. There was so much going on that day. I was nervous. I didn't know. It was my first time meeting these people at Autocross and seeing how the event goes. So unfortunately, I don't have any great videos, but we're going to jump to our first couple of clips of the first Autocross event, which has a little bit of action that made me respect the car a little bit more now that I can actually drive it.
Oh, you can hear the supercharger. Yeah, some smoke. Started a little slip.
All right, so as we saw, I spun out on my very first run. I had an instructor in the car. He's like, oh, gun it. I gunned it, and with the supercharger, the tires just lit off. We have 245/45 ZR17 Nitto NTO1s, which are very grippy tires. So it really taught me that I need to respect this car. If I'm out on the street, I can't be goofing around, so I am definitely going to be doing a lot more track events and autocross and maybe the drag strip eventually. But I really want to learn how to drive this car, and it sparked something inside of me on how much I really love not just the build, but like knowing how everything works. I know the ins and outs of this car and how many problems, and I'm learning to tune currently, which that was also a problem in the first autocross. However, biggest problem we had, every time we came back to the pits, there was a puddle under the car. Nothing crazy, like a steady drip, no like streams. It was a steady drip of some sort of very dark old oil, which I then proceeded to make a whole series of videos with only a week left till the next event. So we're gonna jump into those real quick. These are older videos, so we'll see how the filming is and all that now. Alrighty guys, so it is currently Tuesday, about 8:30 in the morning. I have an autocross that I'm signed up for Saturday, so we've got about 4 days, and we got a problem. There is a leak coming from where the bell housing meets the engine. I don't think it's oil from the engine, as the level hasn't gone down at all, and that oil in the engine is, it's getting the light here a little better, is brand new. It's still new when I check it, and I never checked the transmission fluid. When I did, it was low, it was very dark. I think the transmission is leaking into the bell housing. I think I know why. I will get back once we have the transmission off, but first, the garage is filthy. There's no room to work. It's got to the point where I was just kind of putting stuff on to get the car to drive, and I don't like that. I like organization, clean stuff. So what I gotta do first here is clean up the garage, and then I will jump back into it. Alrighty, couple updates. Garage is kind of cleaned up. I've got space, picked up trash. I could sweep, I'll do that. But I figured I'd get the car up in the air so that I wasn't walking around the tires constantly, because they are quite big and take up a lot more space than when they're off. So, a couple things that I am going to work on here now that the car's off the ground. I'm going to remove the hood and the side panel. I think you can see that okay. Yeah, I'm going to remove this side panel. As we can see, I actually riveted this one. Focus, yeah. This right side panel I riveted. It was very temporary because I had the race to get to before. And then this side, I tried using these well nuts from Amazon, which are alright, they work, but I drilled the holes slightly big so they could accidentally slip in there. There are new well nuts on the way. Hopefully they come in time. If not, I'll just end up riveting that other side again. Other update, once the camber was set, this right side was drifting to the point that the wheels started to rub. Can we see this at all? Focus. You can see that there's a big notch out of the bottom of the coil over here. Nothing structural wrong with it, but it was definitely rubbing. So I picked up some 5mm wheel spacers. That should be enough. If not, I will. It came in a set of 4. I'll just put the other 5 on the rear as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to put spacers in the front. It's perfectly fine up there. I don't know if it'll be an issue having spacers in the back, but not the front. We'll see. If you guys have any comments on that, let me know. Other thing I did wrong, these are the tie rod ends that came with the kit. I put them back here because I thought they went with the tow rod that came with the kit, but actually these rods are supposed to go in the front because they have a longer threading on the inside to deal with the amount of threads that the truck has. The front is completely bottomed out when it comes to alignment, and that's only with an 1/8 inch of toe, so it's close but not enough. So I'm going to swap these while I'm doing this. And then the major problems, we've got 2. We have a big, oh, see there's already some dripping on the floor here. Let's see, can I show you the leak at all? I feel like the sun is gonna blow it out. But where our transmission meets the engine, you might be able to see some there. There's oil leaking right out between there, which could be one of 2 things. It can either be a rear main seal, which I do have a spare one, and if it's doesn't appear to be coming out of the transmission, I will replace that rear main seal, even though it's brand new in there already. Or when I was replacing the clutch slave cylinder, they were stripped out, so I drilled out one of them. I had to drill out, and I'm thinking if I remember correctly, I nicked the threads pretty good there, probably like, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch off the threads to the right, but it's still threaded in, and I didn't think about trying to seal that up with like JB Weld or something, so I think that's what's happening, is the transmission fluid is coming out of the transmission through that hole that I accidentally made, unfortunately. But that's what happens when you're trying to make it work and things are not cooperating. So I'm gonna get back to my monster truck Goblin. This is crazy. I don't think I had it lifted this high before. I didn't have 4 jack stands before, but now I went and picked some up. I might time-lapse the dropping of the transmission. I think I'm gonna clean a little bit more before I do. So I will jump to that, or I'll jump to talking to you guys. We'll see what comes up next. All right, the garage is significantly more dirty. I'll give you a look around to the progress I made. It's currently about noon. Oh, I walked in the shadow, oops. It's about noon, so I've been at it for 4 hours so far. I feel like I'm making decent progress, so let's get to the garage tour. We got our hood and our wheels off, no problem. Goblin's up on the jack stands. I think this is what we've seen so far, but something looks different in the rear. We've got our subframe completely out, and it looks like a jumbled mess on camera, but it's not crazy. I decided to try leaving the suspension on because it was 1 bolt at the top rather than 4 bolts or 2 bolts that were hard to get to. Everything that I took off to get the subframe off is all right here. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 bolts to get the subframe out. That's impressive. So next thing is I gotta get this subframe out of the way so that I could put the engine hoist on the center engine mount to support it while I disconnect the transmission. So I believe that's where the leak is coming from. So I'm gonna get to that real quick, and I'll give you an update when I get some progress done. See you in a bit. Alrighty guys, it's officially day 2 of my 4 days I have to figure out this transmission leaking problem. I just got home from work. I'm a mess, so don't mind how I look, but let's get a progress update on what was going on. Let's see, we're probably gonna blow out the sensor here. Oh, it isn't too bad. So, you can see the garage is a big mess. The dog is wandering off. I will take care of that in a second. We've got our engine hoist supporting the transmission side of the engine. Our transmission is fully unbolted from the frame. It's resting kind of on the jack. I have 6 of the 7 transmission bolts removed. The final one is a pain in the butt, and I ran out of time. It is up here under the supercharger, under the air-to-water intercooler, heat exchanger, and on the starter. So that's what I gotta work with right now, and once I get this transmission dropped out, I will give you an update on what I have found. Alrighty, so the transmission is out. There was lots and lots of oil in there, so I took some brake clean and sprayed it out. Our clutch looks good. The clutch and flywheel doesn't look like it got any oil on it, which tells me that it was definitely a transmission leaking. So what happened is when I was replacing this is our clutch slave cylinder, the top bolt, which is one center frame, was stripped out. So I drilled it out, but I missed the threads a little bit, and I didn't think to seal it at all. So what I just did is I packed a bunch of JB Weld in there, and I screwed it in. It should self-thread itself, so long as the JB Weld didn't leak out at all, which it shouldn't. But we're gonna wait for that to dry, get the transmission back in the car, and then hopefully our leak is fixed. Alrighty, so progress update. Last thing we saw, the transmission was out of the car, dropped on the ground. and I had to put everything back. So everything is mostly back. I just torqued the subframe in. That is in there permanently. The transmission is torqued on. The suspension is tightened all the way, I believe. Yeah. I'm going to readjust the camber. These, if you remember from earlier, these tie rod ends need to be swapped to the front of the car. That's a project in a minute. And then I also got new sway bar end links to install, so I will get those on as well. So I'm going to jump, do the camber, get a bunch of stuff done, and hopefully we'll be on the wheels afterwards. So as you saw, there was a problem with the transmission, I'm pretty sure. I haven't had to deal with that leak for quite some time now, but I definitely was rushing to get that transmission out of the car, back in, with a very tight time frame. Plus I work overnights, so I have like maybe an hour or two a day to work on the car. And that was very important because we didn't want any of that oil getting on the clutch. We didn't want to blow up our transmission. So we got that down, and then we went to our second autocross event, which was in July. Now there's a couple things. I do have a couple videos of that one. I'll put one or two of my better runs there. I didn't do any vlog style stuff because I'm not comfortable talking to the camera in public at all. I don't know how long that'll take me. I'll probably need to get pretty far with posting videos to do that. But our second autocross, just a few points that I wrote down. The tuning is still terrible. The car does this thing where once you floor it, it'll start going, and then it'll start to buck and surge and kind of die a little bit. So you can't really go full throttle. You could go like 80 or 90%, and it's fine. And this is before I had a wideband gauge installed. I'm starting to feel better, a little bit more confident driving, but still kind of holding back a little bit. This car has so much potential for going fast at these events, but I am still much slower than most of the Miata guys out there, which is fine because I have a lot to learn still. And the final thing, very, very bad coolant leak in the intake system, which plagued me for multiple events. So that's something that we have to replace later. With these points being said, let's jump into I'm going to put up 2 of my best runs for the July event. And then I'm going to jump into a time lapse of me replacing the Laminova cores on the intake, which was leaking severely, dumping coolant into the combustion, causing big white clouds of smoke. So let's jump into those autocross videos. Man, I can't get enough of that supercharger whine. When I first built this thing, I for sure was thinking, oh, I'll keep the supercharger for a little bit and then I'll jump to turbo. This thing's intoxicating. Like, the sounds it makes, like, the video doesn't give it justice. You could hear it, but it's just, it puts a smile on everyone's face, and it just sounds so good when it's running right. Jumping to our third autocross for August, I was very impressed. My fiance, Haley, actually rode in the car with me. I didn't think she would. She doesn't have any kind of interest in racing or cars. She just lets me have my hobby, which I'm very grateful for. But she jumped in the car. She wanted to be a part of it, and she has gone to every autocross event with me. I know she won't watch the video, but I want to thank her so much for being so supportive of this hobby and building a full-on race car, essentially. Other things, it's still very poorly tuned. I was working with a tuner that was well known from what I was told. He was trying to teach me, I was trying to learn, and it just wasn't going well, so the tune is still very bad. I believe I had a wideband at this point. I don't quite remember. But all of our leaks were fixed. So transmission wasn't leaking, our coolant issue was taken care of, and this was the first time I got to enjoy the event with the coolant and all the leaks all sealed up. So jumping into these autocross runs from August now. So, to round up the season, we had 2 autocross events in October. One was in early October, I think it might have even been the 1st, and one was late October. The one early October, it rained. I tried to go. It was a mistake. It was cold and miserable. I didn't bother setting up a camera, so there are no videos of the first event in October. My intake got wet, and I retired after a run and a half where I spun it, and I just wasn't having fun in the rain. It was cold and miserable, and you can understand that. Second autocross, the end of October, was the most satisfying thing I have experienced in a really long time. I said screw it to having someone help me tune. I started doing the research and learning on my own. So the tune is still very rough for the October event, but is much, much better. It was the most gratifying thing to be able to lay the throttle down and go through the course. I'm still slow. I'm still kind of freaked out from the car. It's so fast. and just the slightest thing, if you blow the tires off, it loops around you before you even know it's looping. The other thing, my uncle, you can see his head will be on the right while we're in these videos. He is my inspiration for getting into cars. He has had so many cool cars. He had third gen Camaros. He had those Buick Roadmasters. He has an Impala that he loves. He loves cars and always had me helping him growing up. And it was awesome to take him for rides with me. I'm going to show 2 clips from the last autocross for October and the season. One of them I recovered pretty well from, coming into a turn a little bit too hot, but then I recovered. I'm learning how to drive the car. It was very satisfying. And then the second one was a very fast run. For me, I mean, you can't say personal best because it's always a different track, but second run was amazing. It felt so good. I couldn't stop smiling afterwards. And with that said, I am hooked on autocross. Like, let's jump into those clips. All right, that's my entire autocross season. I should have made videos all throughout, but I didn't have anything that I could come up with that would have taken up more than 2 minutes and really told the story. I think putting them all in one video like this really tells the story of the first time this car drives and the life of having a project car. Like, even though this is a big project, everybody has to struggle going through these things and learning and building, and that's the best way to learn, is taking it apart and putting it back together. So I look forward to this next season. My first autocross is in about 2 weeks at the same venue that these other ones have been to, but I'm planning to do hopefully at least 2 autocrosses a month. So hopefully I could get a video of 2 autocrosses each month this year. And I would really like to do an event called the Summit Racing Autocross Week, which starts over in Pittsburgh, about 3 hours from me. And it's essentially the equivalent of drag week for drag racing, where you race at one track, drive to the next one, and then the next day you race at the next. And it's 5 days in June. But the car needs to be legal. So the whole inspection process has started. I have submitted all my paperwork to PennDOT. We're just waiting on a response from them. Hopefully I could get that through. If so, that will be a big, big event that I would like to go to. That's my goal for this year, to drive the car on the road, get the tuning dialed, and just get better as a driver and a builder. Once we have a plate for the car, I will do an update showing off all the things that changed. Like, I have sliders in the car, we have a glass windshield. There's lots of stuff that I've worked on and been learning throughout the season. So if you guys enjoyed this video, consider subscribing or liking. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.